Hey guys, welcome back. So this is part 5 in a whole series of tutorials that will teach you how to create professional digital specification drawings to accompany your fashion illustrations. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to add colour, texture, fabric and even print to your finished specification illustrations. It's a simple and fun tutorial that will basically bring your specification illustrations to life. So let's get started. I'm going to open up Adobe Illustrator on the Mac and we're going to get cracking. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, these are all the illustrations that I created in part 1 to 4 of this specification illustration series of tutorials. So if you're unfamiliar with what's actually happening here, just go back to part 1 and work through all the tutorials and you'll get to this kind of point. Also, something else to mention, we have created this amazing, huge let's say specification illustration pack, which is fully editable. You can basically use any of these, play around with them, you can edit them, you can swap over the different sleeves, you can do all kinds of different things. So it's really handy. So if you want to just play around with adding color and texture and print, then obviously you can download this pack. It'll be a link in our YouTube video, but also if you're on the actual website, web page where this video is being hosted, then you can also download it from that page as well. So first of all, I'm going to show you some very, very simple concepts when it comes to adding color. So let's just zoom in. And if you're unfamiliar with zooming and moving around the page, Command +++ on your keyboard is to zoom in, and then Command --- zooms out. Hold down the space key on your keyboard, click and drag, allows you to move around the page. So this way we can move around, we can zoom in, and it makes things much easier. So let's go ahead and add some color to this garment. So at the moment it's got a grey fill, which is the standard color I use for just my non-colored specification illustrations. I'm just going to simply get my small selection tool, I'm going to click on this body outline, and then going to double click on my fill color palette over here, which brings up the color picker. So here we can go for a nice blue, we can maybe make it like a, I don't know, like a grey sort of like duck egg blue. Just click OK, and it will then fill it with color. But obviously there are other elements in here which have got colors as well. So for example, the placket, I can then decide to take this panel, this one. So with my small selection tool, click on this panel, hold down the shift key to queue up the selection, click, click. I can click on this, click on this, click on the placket, and then maybe double click on my fill layer, and then we could add a different blue, maybe something that's slightly darker. Maybe we could even go for like a gray blue. And I just simply click, and then it adds the color. We could do the same for the buttons. Let's just zoom in, we'll do the same for this. Also, there's another really handy way of selecting color as well. So because I actually missed this panel, I can just simply select it with my small selection tool, and instead of going to the color picker and trying to select this color by just sort of like pretending to know where it is, which isn't going to be right, instead, select different color, I can simply go to my eyedropper tool, which is on the left here, click on this, hold down the shift key, and just simply click on any part or any color of the page, and it will pick up that color, which is really handy. So let's go for the buttons. I'm going to then just simply select these buttons. So click small selection tool, click on the button, hold down the shift key, click, 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 click. Hopefully I have too many buttons, could take a little bit of time. And then here we can maybe make these like a dark gray, for example. Great. So this is how we add very, very simple color to our, let's say, specification illustrations. And maybe this panel down here, which is actually the back of our shirt dress here. I can select this. Let's go for this color again. Select it. There we go. We can maybe make it a slightly darker color because of the shadow. There we go. Great. So this is how we add very, very simple color. Next, what I want to do is show you how to add, let's say, print or any image. So it can be a printed fabric, it can be a, let's say, a fabric texture, anything you want to add. And there's two different ways you can do this. You can do it by using a clipping mask, or you can do it by using swatches. First of all, I'm going to show you how to use swatches, and also how swatches work with a repeat print, and how swatches work with a non-repeat print. So first of all, I'm going to select, actually no, first of all, down this right-hand side here, I've got 3 prints that I've created, and they're full repeat prints. And I've created these in Adobe Photoshop. We actually have print tutorials that you can have a look at as well if you want to create your own prints. I'm simply going to click and drag this JPEG image onto my desk or onto my page. Let's zoom out a little bit, it's quite big. Once again, so at the moment, if you see these, let's say, diagonal lines, it means that it's not actually saved within your document. It means it's pulling it from an external file, which is here. So if I were to delete this, unfortunately this would be removed from my page. So I'm just going to select this and go embed. And as you can see, those diagonal lines have been removed, and so now it's actually saved on the page. I can get my big section tool, click on this, go to the corner, and then click and drag to resize it. And holding down my shift key constrains the proportions. If I don't, then obviously we can get quite an unusual scaled print. Hold down the shift key, let's just scale it down. And I'm going to do two different versions of this. So we have a really small print. I'm then going to copy and paste this in again. I'm going to make it slightly larger. So click and drag, hold down the shift key. And let's do another one. Click and drag, make a much larger one. So we have these three different print sizes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my swatches palette on the right hand side here. And you can also find that, go to Window and then Swatches, which will bring up the Swatches palette. And I'm just simply going to click and drag. First of all, I have a few of these already in here. So let me just get rid of these. There we go. Let's just delete these completely. There we go. Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to simply click and drag this first one into my Swatches palette, which is my small one. As you can see, it's just appeared just here. So when I drag the next one, just watch the Swatches palette and you'll see it appear just next to it. So I'm dragging all three of these in, like so. Let's just move these away. I'm going to go to my, let's say my second garment. I'm going to get my small selection tool. I'm going to click on the body. I'm then going to make sure the fill is on top. So you don't want your stroke on top, you want your fill on top. I'm then going to go to my swatch and I'm going to select the first one, which is the small print. I'm just going to click. And as you can see, it's now filled it with that beautiful print. If I click the second one, it'll be slightly larger, and the third one will be even larger still. So this is how swatches work. You can basically drag a image into your swatches palette, and then you can fill whatever objects you have on your page by just simply going to the fill and then clicking on the swatch. So really handy. Now I mentioned before about repeat prints. So this is a repeat print, and the reason why is because if I simply copy and paste this, and then I drag it to match the other side, you can see that it's seamless. Oh, hang on, I've got to do it. It's a bit difficult. But anyway, there you can see it's a seamless print. Let's nudge it over a bit. And also, so it tiles horizontally, but it also tiles vertically. So this is a repeat print. And this works really well with swatches because essentially, swatches are just like tiles. Let's go back. Swatches are just like tiles. So now what happens? So this works really well. Because this is a full repeat print, you're not going to see any seams or any edges in this garment. However, if we use a non-repeat print, so let's just go over something that I found online. Let's just drag this in. So this is not my print, this is something I just found online, and it's this sort of like little pink and blue thing. And I'm just going to embed it once again. So this does not repeat. As you can see, it doesn't repeat. I mean, it probably repeats there, so I could probably use that, but I just want to show you the fact that this does not repeat. So we're going to get this line down here, and it also doesn't repeat lengthways. You see, we get this sort of like this little line. It kind of does, but not quite. So you can see that this is not repeat. I'm going to stop repeating myself. Okay, so once again, I'm going to take this piece. Let's make a few different examples. Let's make this really small so we can see that tile. Copy and paste it. We're going to make a slightly larger one, like so. And then we'll do a really large one, like so. And I'm just going to get my swatches palette, open this. I'm going to click and drag this in. You can see it just appears here. Get the next one, click and drag this in, it appears here. Click and drag, appears here. Let's just then delete those. So now, when I go to this panel, get my small selection tool, click, make sure I'm on my fill, which is here. And I'm going to click on this one. Now, as you can see, it's quite a crazy print, but if I zoom in, you can see that this is tiling. So the swatches palette will tile any image you have, but if the images don't match up from horizontally or vertically, you're going to get this tiling effect, which isn't particularly attractive. It doesn't look very professional. So whenever you work with prints, you want to make sure that you have a fully repeating print. But anyway, let's go back to filling our image or our, let's say, our specification drawing with these beautiful swatches. So with my small selection tool, I'm going to go to the sleeve. I'm going to hold down my shift key, click on the other sleeve. I'm going to use my swatches palette and then I'm going to place, I'm just going to simply add, and I can maybe make the sleeve slightly larger depending on what swatch I pick up. I could even use this one if I wanted to. So it shows you how much you can do with this swatches palette. And then let's say, for example, okay, I don't want my collar to be the same as the print, so I can get my small selection tool, click on this panel, hold down the shift key, click on this one, click. Let's click on the placket as well, and the pockets. And maybe let's leave the belt. And then here, for example, maybe I want to add color. So I can combine these two concepts, adding flat color and adding print. So I could either go to my fill, double click, and then find a nice color to then add. That's not particularly nice, but you get my point. Or what I can do is with these selected, go to make sure it's on my fill, go to my eyedropper tool, let's zoom into the print, hold down my Shift key, and I can just simply select parts of this print to add color to my necklines to try and find something that's actually quite pretty. I'm probably not, but yeah, for example, we can go for green. That's actually not too bad. And once again, for the belt, maybe I want to, let's select these pieces. Let's zoom in, select these pieces, and I can either add this green, so go to the eyedropper tool and just click. Oh, we missed a bit. Go to my eyedropper tool, hold down the Shift key, click, and that will fill it with the same green. Or maybe with these selected, I can go to my swatch again and then add the, let's say, the print. I can maybe make it even a larger print, for example. It's completely up to you. So you can see how incredibly diverse this is. Once again, we can also go to our buttons here and here. I can even select these ones, and we can maybe make this yellow or gold or whatever color you want to make it. We could maybe make it green again. It's up to you. So that's how we do it. What else can I mention about this? Okay, so for example, let's say these cuffs. So this is really important. So obviously our garments, the ones we created, already have these panels, but what if I wanted to add a different trim to this? Well, I can't, because if I select the outline, there's nothing to select here. I can't fill anything. So what I can do is I can draw a trim and lay it on top and then color it. And to do that, I'm going to go to my big selection tool. I'm going to click and drag over this item. I'm going to go Object and then Lock Selection. Okay, so I can't edit it or play with it at all. Let's zoom into this cuff. I'm going to get my pen tool. I'm going to start to map this out. So I'm going to click and drag. Let's just map this out, click and drag. Maybe I'll speed this process up. This is what we were doing in part 1 to 4 of this tutorial. It's just simply clicking and dragging to create these beautiful, let's say, shapes. Let's take this down to here. Click and drag. There we go. It's going to map this out like that. So now I have an object that I can actually fill. So I'm going to go to my fill layer, or my fill attribute over here, then go to my eyedropper tool, hold down the Shift key, click on the green, and now I have that trim. And because this is a mirror image, I can grab this piece, I can copy and paste it. I can then right click, transform, reflect, hit OK, and then just move it off to the opposite side, try and get it in the correct position, and there we have our trims that we've made as well. So this just shows you that when you're adding color, you might have to add little attributes or elements if you want to then add more color to your garment. Okay, so we've done a little bit about swatches and we've talked about the print. So for example, just to recap, depending on what size your image is and when you drag it into your swatches palette, that will be the size that it comes out on your garment. So obviously you can create a whole bunch of different prints of all different sizes and experiment to play around with them. And once again, the swatches palette, it tiles the imagery. So if you have a non-repeat print, you're going to get some really sort of like nasty lines and edges. So make sure you use full repeat prints. And once again, you can combine color with print just by simply selecting the item or selecting the object and then just going to the fill layer and then just clicking color or clicking on your swatch palette. Okay, so next I'm going to show you how to use a clipping mask. It's slightly different to swatches. It's a little bit harder to use, but it gives you far more control when it comes to your prints, especially when it comes to placement prints. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, let's say this print here. Let's copy and paste it in again. Get my big section tool. I'm going to click and drag to make this really, really big. Okay, I'm going to make it larger than my actual garment. I'm then going to go to Object, Arrange, Center Back. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my small selection tool and grab this. Actually, first of all, get my big selection tool, click on the item. Okay, luckily this one isn't grouped, but you want to make sure that none of this is grouped when you create your clipping masks. So let's just select this sleeve. You see how this is all grouped together. Let's go Object and then Ungroup. You can also go Shift-Command-G on your keyboard a few times, which will completely ungroup it. So now these are all separate items, which is really useful. So first of all, I've got my big, let's say, print here. I'm going to copy and paste this 3 times. Just going to copy and paste it in a few times. You can see we've got 3 of these now. And I'm going to send them all to the back. So Object, Arrange, and then Center Back. Great. And let's just line these all up so they're just on top of each other, which is great. I'm then going to get my body block, or the body of this, let's say, illustration. I'm going to get my big section tool, select this panel. Then I'm going to hold down my Shift key and select one of the prints. Next, I'm going to go right click and then go Make Clipping Mask. And as you can see, it has made a clipping mask. What I'm going to do is let me move these off to the side so you can see what's actually happened here. So you can see that the block, which is this, has basically, we have created we have used this block outline and we've transposed it over the print to then cut the print from it. And what I'll do is let me just go to my small selection tool. I'm going to click on this outline and let's just add a black line to it, just so it's got a bit of definition. We can make this 2. There we go. But the great thing about using a clipping mask is it's unlike a swatch. So with the swatch, you can't control how the print sits on your garment. But with a clipping mask, if you get your small selection tool and you see how you hover over this, you can see the outline of the actual print background. So I'm simply going to click on this. And then I can, with my nudge keys, my arrow keys, I can then just move this around. So I'm moving the print around, and it's basically using that clipping mask. And you see that if we go off the edge, it's not going to work. I can also, if I get my big selection tool, click and then drag and resize this. So it makes it far more powerful. You can control your print just simply by clicking and dragging and moving it around. So it makes it really cool when it comes to you want to like create a really nice, interesting concept. So we've created the body. Next, we're going to do the sleeve. So once again, I'm going to grab this print here. It's behind, which is great. Get my big selection tool, click on the sleeve, hold down the shift key, click on the print, then go right click, make clipping mask. And there we have our print, and I can move this around. You see, I can kind of like play with it. I can even maybe pull this off to the side a bit. Okay, so you can even, once again, get your big selection tool, click and drag. You can even make this much, much smaller. And once again, we can move it around, etc. Okay, so this gives you far more control when it comes to your prints. You could even get your small selection tool here, right click. So I've just clicked on my print. So click on this little sleeve print, right click, and then transform reflect, and then just click vertical OK. And I've just reflected it, and you can see that we can now move this around, and it looks slightly better than it did before because this was repeating. And once again, let's get my print, which is over here. Click and drag it over. Let's then select my sleeve, hold down the shift key, select this one. Let's go right click and then make clipping mask. Sorry for the noises in the background. And let's just select this item here, and I can then just move it around. And I can even once again get my big selection tool and just make this ever so slightly smaller, move it around to create the perfect placement. Great, so that's how we use clipping masks, but there is also another way. So for example, if I make this far, far smaller, I want a much smaller print. Well, that's great, but the problem is that what are we going to do about the bottom? So what we do is just simply, I'm going to move this into position. Let's make it much, much smaller. So let's click and drag, make it smaller. Because this is a repeating print, once again, I can just simply hold down the Option key on my keyboard, which gives you this little plus. It appears like a plus. Click and drag, hold down my Shift key to lock it to the vertical. And because it's a repeating print, I can just simply place it where it needs to be. I can do that once again to hold down the Option key on my keyboard, click and drag it into position, holding down the Shift key to lock it to the vertical. And you see I'm starting to tile this up much in the same way that a swatch would. I can then, with all these 3 selected, so small selection tool, click, hold down the Shift key, click, copy and paste. Sorry, let's not copy and paste, let's hold down the Option key, click and drag, and I can then tile it within my garment. Select them all, we can even make this larger, there we go. And once again, we can move these around within the page. And you just want to make sure that you've actually tiled these properly. So let's move that up a little bit, move this up a little bit. Okay, there's a few little lines there, but essentially you get the idea. So this is clipping masks and how you use them. You can use multiple images within one clipping mask. Give me 1 second. There we go. So you can use multiple images or multiple prints within the one clipping mask. It's really simple. Or you can use it as one big piece and move it around. So that's clipping masks. And once again, just in the same way we use swatches, you could maybe then click on this item, click on this, click on this, click on this, and then we could obviously add our green. Same for these panels here. Click. Let's click on this piece. Let's click on this piece. Let's go to my eyedropper tool and let's add that green. Want to make sure the fill layer is selected. Click. And there we have our green. So you can see this is how we use clipping masks. Okay, so there's one more thing that I want to show you when we're adding color, etc. So I want to add a little bit of texture. So at the moment, these are looking gorgeous, but they're looking a little bit flat. What if I want to kind of like explain what kind of fabric is going to be used with these, or what kind of fabric this print is printed onto? So what I've done is I've just simply Googled online cotton fabric swatch, and I've simply saved an image to my desktop. You can also scan, so let me just pull this into Adobe Illustrator. So you can either scan this in, so this is not particularly high resolution version, it's a bit crap to be fair, but it's the only thing I could really find. So you could always go to your scanner, get your fabric of choice, and then scan it in, and obviously make your square and for example, import that scan into Adobe Illustrator, and you would have this, let's say this texture, this cotton texture, and then you could go to your swatches and just drag it into your swatch. Obviously, depending on what size you want it, so let's make it really small. And if I just simply drag that into my swatches palette, I can then click on the items, hold down the small selection tool, click, hold down the shift key, click, click, go to my fill layer, and then just click on the swatch. And as you can see, it's going to fill it with a bit of texture. But unfortunately, because this is not a very good quality fabric swatch, and we have this little R1 in the corner, once again, you can see that it's tiling. So this isn't particularly brilliant. But if you had a really beautiful scan of your fabric and you didn't have this little R1 on the corner, then obviously that would work quite well. And obviously, depending on what size you made this, so let's make it slightly larger, would be a slightly thicker or heavier, let's say cotton, or a more textured cotton. You see? And to be fair, this tiling will get better the larger this texture is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this actually quite large just to show you the concept. Let's just drag it in. And let's just add that texture like so. Okay, so it's a really, it's actually not as good. Let's just remove that. So we can work with this texture here. So how do we get this texture, but to work with, let's say, a color, for example? So what I'm going to do is I've basically dragged that, let's say, fabric texture into my swatches palette. And also, it's really important to mention, if you're scanning in fabric, that's great. Just scan it in, stick it in your swatches palette, and you can use it straight up. But if I wanted to color this material, the best thing to do is use white. Always use something that's white. You can't use black, you can't use a dark gray, you can't use a color, because any color you put on top of this is going to be affected by the color of this fabric. So for example, if I just make a little square here, and then I fill that with blue, let's go for a dusty blue, and then I go to my transparency and I go to multiply, you can see that when we add that, I'm going to show you how to do that properly later, you can see that it overlays on top of that. So if this was to be a darker grey, or if it's to be a pink or a blue or a black, this colour that you're adding to it would be affected by that. So always go for a white fabric source, if of course you're colouring it. If you're just scanning your fabric, it doesn't matter, just scan it, create a swatch, and then fill your garment, which is great. But I'm going to show you how to create a colour layer on top of this to create a coloured texture. And we can also add the print as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, let's get all my pieces. I'm just going to select all of these, and I'm going to create that. I'm going to go to my swatch and then fill it. Which one was it? Wasn't that one? It was that one. No, it wasn't. It was this one. Perfect. And let's also do the same for the placket as well. Let's just create that fill swatch. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my small selection tool. I'm going to select this panel, this panel, this panel, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. I'm going to copy and paste it. And I'm then going to go to my Pathfinder tool. So as you can see, I've got all of the outline panels, but none of the details. And with it all selected, I'm going to go to my Pathfinder tool, which is just here, or you can also go to Window and then Pathfinder. I'm just going to click on the Unite button, and that will basically join all of those together, so we just have the outline. I can even, with my small selection tool, select this little internal element and just hit backspace a few times. I'm then going to click and drag this over the top, like so. I'm then going to get rid of the line. I'm also going to double click on the fill, and let's make it blue. So now we have a blue outline. And next what I'm going to do is go to my transparency palette, which once again you go Window and then go to Transparency. And I'm just going to click the filter here, blending mode. We can make it darken, which darkens it. We can go multiply, we can do color burn, we can do all kinds of different filters that will allow us to get some interesting, we can do color as well, for example. But I tend to find that multiply or color works the best. So if you look at our color over here, it's probably best with color, but we can also use multiply if we want it slightly darker. And we've just simply, it's just a color layer, it's just a filter that we're putting over the top of that garment, which is really, really useful. So that's for the whole garment, but what about if we just want to do these pieces individually? Let's delete that color layer. Let's then go to this panel here, for example. Let's get my small selection tool. Let's just select this panel, select this panel. Let's then just copy and paste. And then we can just go to our color. Let's select that light blue. Let's remove the line. I can drag this back over those pocket panels. Let's go to our transparency and let's go to normal and then multiply. And so we've now made the pocket. But what about the rest? So let's go to the sleeve, for example. I can then just simply copy and paste this once I've selected my sleeve. And I can then go to the fill. Let's use our eyedropper tool for this one. And it already has its multiply and transparency. So just once again, so I've just simply copied and pasted my sleeve here. like so. And I'm just going to go to the eyedropper tool. So this is selected. I'm going to my eyedropper tool, and I'm just going to click on this color layer. And what it'll do is it'll pick up the attributes of this color layer. So the multiply, opacity, the color, etc. And I'm then simply just going to click and drag this over to my sleeve. Now at the moment, you can see it's actually overlapping onto the body, which is a problem. So what I can do is get my small selection tool and just click on this point and drag it in. Click and drag these points to the various locations to create this overlay. And let's go to my convert anchor point tool. Click and drag until we have something that looks like our sleeve. We can then select this piece, go copy and paste. We can then right click, transform, reflect, hit OK, click and drag it to the opposite side. And then if you want to, don't forget it's still got multiply on over here. We can then just change the color to be maybe like a darker blue. That's not much of a change. Let's go to a much darker blue. Okay, and so we can then do this. So we're just picking up different elements of this, let's say, garment. So here, for example, I can simply select this item, select this, let's go copy paste. And then here I can go to my eyedropper tool, let's pick up this color here. In fact, no, let's go to our Pathfinder. So I'm just going to unite all of these so it's one complete outline, so there's no overlaps. Let's just go to the Pathfinder, let's click. There we go. I can overlay this back over the top, and then if I get my eyedropper tool, I can then select this, and then we have our color, and we can use this color. We can even use our print. Hang on. Let's go to swatches. Let's go to our print, and there is our print, for example. But once again, because it's using this multiply layer, you see, or this color layer, you can see that it's picking up the texture underneath, which is great. So once again, I can click on this item, click on this item. Let's go to our swatches. Let's click on this panel here. And then we can also go to the body. So if I just simply click on the body, copy and paste, let's put that back in. And then let's go to the swatch. And let's even go to multiply. And let's just remove the line color, like so. And there we have our color panel. But at the moment, unfortunately, it's actually interfering with our collar. You see how it's overlapping onto the collar. So what we need to do is, if we're adding that color layer, we just simply need to grab these points and just move it around. So this one, I'm going to get my small selection tool. I'm going to click on this point. Let's take this one down here. We can take this point to this area and just move it around until you are satisfied. Let's take this one here. Move these in. Let's also get the pen tool. Let's just join this up. There we go. Click on that piece. Click on this one. Let's move that out. There we go. And so I could fill this with maybe a different print. So just by simply clicking on it, let's go to the fill layer. Let's then go to the swatches palette, and we can maybe change that to be whatever. But because once again, it is always multiply, it will pick up that texture behind it. So it's looking a little bit more interesting. And once again, we can do our, let's say our placket, we can make our placket a different color. Let's do our collar. So click on the collar panel. Let's make this a sort of like that dusty blue again. And let's go to our placket. Okay, so at the moment, you can see I can't actually select the placket because it's underneath this top color layer. So what I would do is I would just simply I would select that body layer, go Object, Lock, Selection, and then that allows me to select whatever's underneath it because I can't select that body layer. Select this, and then we could also go to eyedropper, and then let's just select. Let's go to multiply, and there you have the little color placket. And the buttons should be pretty straightforward. Let's just select the outline of these buttons. I'm not going to make these transparent because that would just be odd. Unless they were pearlescent perhaps. Let's just make it grey. Click OK. And then let's do the inner circle as well. Let's select that item, select that one, that one, that one. Let's go to the eyedropper tool and let's just pick up that grey. There we go. And we could always, let's grab the button, so select this. Let's ungroup them all first. Select this let's say the buttons, and we can go Object, Arrange, Bring to Front, so it sits on top of all of these items. So that is how you add color and also print to a textural layer. And if you decide you don't want that textural layer anymore, what you could do is just simply, let's select this panel here. Let's go Object and then Lock Selection, so we can access the underneath panel. There you go. And I could just simply then just select it, and I could then just remove that fill. Same for the opposite side. We could then just remove that fill. Same for the body. Let's just lock the color layer, and let's just go to this one, and let's just remove it. Okay, so that's it, guys. That's the end of this whole series of tutorials. It's been a real pleasure taking you through the whole process, but most importantly, I want to hear what you think. So how did you find the series, and what would you like to see next? You can leave us a comment or send us an email. We absolutely love hearing your feedback. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We've got loads of more amazing free content coming up that we think you're going to absolutely love. So if you're looking for more amazing digital fashion illustration tutorials, then check out our other YouTube playlists. You'll find plenty more tutorials to get stuck into. Anyway, thanks for watching. That's all from me, and I'll see you again next time. Cheers.